message to the billionaire class: you can't have it all.
Ladies and gentlemen out there in the audience, how are you guys doing this week? Today is December 8th, 2017. It is another week has gone by. Amazingly, in this time of Donald Trump in the idiot square. But I'm joined this week by my two good buddies here, my co-hosts, Jordan Speed and Michael Beswick. My name is Christopher Robinson. I totally forgot to mention that, I think. So I'm just going to throw that out there. How's it going, guys?
Pretty good. I'm over the cold. Still coughing.
Yes.
Yeah, isn't that nice? Convenient.
Yeah, actually, yeah, this time.
So you know, you guys have been paying a little bit of attention to the news lately, huh?
No, not that much, mate.
No? Well, I mean, there's some things going on. There's some things.
Yeah, it's only a quiet week.
Yeah.
Just kidding.
I mean, there's been sexual allegations being thrown around and
galore.
This week, Al Franken, who has been fingered as being a someone that has done these things before. He's even had a picture taken of him in a very awkward position where he was pretending to grope a woman.
Yeah,
So he had some
okay.
Yeah, he was having some bad times for that, and since then, this week he's resigned in that. So that happened this week.
Just to put things into perspective, like, apparently, look, I didn't get a chance to look it over, but I received a push notification from the Washington Post that says the last time this many U.S. lawmakers resigned at once, it was over slavery. So,
wow. That's interesting.
Yeah, from what I'm reading, I don't recognize all the names and stuff for the senators, but it's like, this guy is accused, this guy's accused, this guy's accused. I'm like,
yeah.
Can we just get all of American politicians
and
assume they're all guilty until they can prove otherwise?
Totally.
I mean, that seems a little bit unfair, Mike. Just assume they're all guilty.
Just going off history. They're basically... There's like dozens, isn't there? Like,
yeah, I'm sure there's a hell of a lot more than we even know about at this point. But
it's just like, is there any of your politicians who are not sexual predators? What is it about Americans that are electing sexual predators?
I mean, I don't know if it's more an American thing other than it is a power thing. You know, I guarantee you there's going to be guys in UK politics doing the same bullshit.
Oh, there is.
So there you go. So it's not an American thing.
We've actually got worse. A few years back, the Conservatives there was a paedophile ring in the UK, and it turned out that the Conservatives might have been covering for them.
Yikes.
Ta-da! Yeah, so we're probably worse.
So yeah,
that's some Alex Jones type shit.
Yeah, so we can't really speak.
Yeah, exactly. So it's not an American thing, so shut up. But anyway, not only is that a thing that's been going on, which is a great thing, and I'm glad that these allegations are coming out finally for these women to actually find the justice that they deserve from these incidences. But there's some other things happening around the United States, especially right now. Mainly this little thing we like to call the bullshit tax plan. It's one way to put it, at least. You guys have any creative?
I did my homework the night before. I've written essays the night before they're due in. That's more professional than that thing.
Yeah. So yeah, the Republicans are pushing this tax cut bill. Yeah. You got something, Jordan?
No, I was just going to say no teacher in their right mind would actually give that a passing grade.
Yeah, like it was... go. Are you actually kidding me right now? Go away.
I mean, if you look at the curving of grades in America these days, maybe you'd get like a D. something.
Man, that's the type of material that gets you left back.
Yeah, probably. Being honest. So, yeah, it's kind of a disaster from what I've seen. But, yeah, I mean, that's another thing that happened this week. Anything else you guys can think of? Anything at all?
Well, our Brexit negotiator admitted that the government has done no impact studies on Brexit.
Shocking.
So they have no idea what's going to happen.
Mike. Say if I was running the Brexit negotiations, that would be the first thing I would do.
Before you even call the ref right, but what's what actually this do? No idea. We're using the ones the EU did because we haven't done any. Because what? You haven't studied them? You have what?
Wait.
Yeah.
Oh God. This can only end badly. This can only end badly.
Yeah. There was also a video that came out of Donald Trump. Did you see that one? Oh my God, it's amazing. Actually, I think you posted it even, Michael, into the Discord that we have, our super secret lair Discord. Oh man. About Trump sounding like he is drunk as hell or something like that. Like, the guy sounds like absolutely like he's like about to die or something like that. It's crazy.
Loose lips sink dicks.
Yeah. Yeah, he's sort of like, God bless Israel. God bless the Palestinians. And God bless
and then there's the whole Israel-Palestine thing where he randomly decided, this religiously charged, very volatile situation out in the Middle East, I'm just going to throw a match in it. Why?
Why not? It's a good idea, right?
Fuck you, that's why.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's American, foreign policy right now because of the Trump administration. Just fuck you is basically all we're saying to everyone. So, yeah, it's great. But, yeah, great times this week. I'm sure there's more that happened, but I can't think of it.
Yeah. Yeah, just before you mentioned we started recording, we were talking about the tax bill. And you mentioned you can't deduct state and local taxes anymore. Nope. And apparently, if you get a grant for your, say if you go to university, you get a grant for doing it, a scholarship or something, that gets added to your taxes. So if you've got a 40 grand tuition, you get a grant for 40 grand, you'll pay let's say you get 20 grand for working and then 40 grand for a grant to go to university, you pay taxes for 60,000.
Yep.
What a world. And yeah,
great.
In high tax states like the one we live in, Chris, New Jersey, and even New York, we rely.
Such a cheap state. What are you talking about?
Oh yeah, anyone can make it here.
New Jersey, come on. This state, it's not expensive here.
God, it makes me wonder why more people don't live here. But so we rely on.
That's one way to put it, I suppose.
But we rely on deducing our state and or including our state and local taxes in the overall package because it just increases what we'll get in return. So that just kind of fucks things up for a lot of people.
Probably a little bit. But, there was also, there was actually going to be some protests, I think, that happened yesterday on our topic for today, actually, as well.
What's
Interestingly enough, for net neutrality.
Is it?
Unless the source that I was reading was old. I thought it was a recent article, at least. Let's look in here. December 7th, 2017. Yeah, so this is not that old. There were actually protests across the country, I believe yesterday. Hundreds of protesters were staged across the country on Thursday, which was yesterday, because today's Friday, and you guys are going to be hearing this at the earliest on Saturday, but still. But people were protesting largely in front of Verizon stores, protesting for the safety of net neutrality. Because right now the Trump administration is trying to repeal the net neutrality laws that were put in place under Barack Obama's term a few years ago.
And just for a little bit too, I know we haven't necessarily gotten here yet, but they're specifically protesting in front of the Verizon building for a reason. That's because the current FCC commissioner, which was implemented by Donald Trump, Ajit Pai, the name of this chairman. He was a lawyer for Verizon previously. Yeah. Before taking a position as an FCC chairman. So yeah.
Weird. Yeah, I did read that
revolving door.
Yeah, exactly. The revolving door is open and ready for business right now. It's weird. There was this little pledge that Donald Trump ran on his entire campaign on. What was it? Drain the
swamp.
Drain the swamp. Yeah, wasn't it something like that? Maybe he's losing his mind because obviously
Sorry, I can't hear you over the sound of this swamp.
I mean, maybe he's losing his mind. Like I'm saying though, he is starting to slur his words and starting to lose his mind. So maybe by draining the swamp, he's thinking that he has to drain the swamp into the swamp, sort of. I don't know. I mean,
he's the swamp monster.
Maybe
he's going to drain the swamp out of Washington and put it in your house.
Yeah, maybe, or right into the White House with him, so they can cuddle at night. Yeah, and
America's just this giant swamp.
Pretty much.
Sorry.
Yeah.
We deserve it.
Well, I mean, Michael is British, so he always takes every opportunity he can to just rub it into America's
It makes
face.
me feel better at our dysfunctional politics.
No, I think there might be some online petitions right now to say, hey, by the way, Britain, can you guys take us back at this point? Because this shit is not working anymore. I mean,
no,
I'm sorry.
Over there.
Can we be friends? So, I mean, Trump is completely dismantling our government and all kinds of different regulations and laws that Barack Obama's term put into place all over the board. It's insane. But today's topic especially is, like we were saying, net neutrality and what's the current state of that. So it's a big topic, obviously. I've read a couple different things. There was an article that you posted, Jordan, about AT&T specifically. Did you want to mention that a little bit?
Yeah, no, I would
start with most of our viewers will probably know already, but what exactly net neutrality is, just very briefly.
Yeah. Exactly.
Nah, they don't need that. I guess we can.
All right, so I guess I'll take it over on this front. So initially, net neutrality was is a regulation that was first enacted in 2010 by the Obama administration under Title I, which is pretty much there's two titles. Title I is Title II, but Title I pretty much regulates things at a much more weakened state than Title II. And so shortly after passing net neutrality under Title I in 2010, Verizon sued the FCC, the Federal Communications Commission, which enforced those net neutrality regulations. And so they successfully sued the FCC, and the court in turn said the only way you could get strong, robust they said this the court talking to the FCC after the ruling, basically saying the only way you can get strong net neutrality regulations is if you reclassify what you have in Title I into Title II, which will put it in the same under the same regulations that govern telephone networks. And so what happened was in 2015, that is exactly what the Obama administration did. And since then, it has basically prevented internet service providers or broadband networks from throttling your network, which basically means slowing down certain sites or applications in your own communication. Say if you're using a messaging service. It also prevents ISPs from blocking your activity. So certain websites, as long as they're lawful, as long as they aren't, any illegal content on such websites, then internet service providers are not allowed to block them under net neutrality. And also, lastly, it's paid prioritization, which basically is so important because this is what makes the internet the information, like the what is it? The information highway, the
free information highway. Yeah.
Exactly. And I think Obama said something really interesting, which is you get the information highway without any tolls in between. So basically, paid prioritization will prevent internet service providers from basically boosting up the performance of one website over another. So basically, if Netflix pays Comcast enough, they can increase their broadband and to the consumer.
Yeah, a lot of these companies also own media. So someone like I forget which company it was, but one of them owns a rival to Netflix, and so they could, maybe Netflix doesn't get the priority on that particular service provider. This other one that they own, I think it was Virgin. They do. They get priority, but Netflix doesn't. And things like that.
Exactly. And
all kinds of shady shit.
Totally. And that's so important. That's really important today when consumers are now starting to wean themselves off of television and start to consume more media via the internet. So these giants, these TV provider, these giants like Comcast and Verizon are now in the future going to have to compete against the likes of Netflix in a more robust way, because they're doing it now. But in a year's time, our attention is going to turn away from our television sets and straight onto our internet monitors, or so our computer monitors. So this just gives them even more reign in the future to slow down networks or providers like Netflix or Hulu and bolster their own television, internet. I guess how can you say it? Content.
Yeah. And this is something conservatives should be against as well as liberals, because liberals were for open access and freedom to use the internet, and conservatives want the free market, and the free market can't work if the market is being controlled by the companies. So what we want is the market, the use of these websites to be determined by who makes the best website cheapest. iTunes is a great website, Netflix, etc.
Right.
We don't want it being determined by who controls the internet.
Right. And that's what made the internet so open and free, is not this internet service providers, but what normal everyday people were able to do with the broadband that they had. They were able to create sites and resources for people to freely consume, or sometimes they would have to pay for it, except there wasn't any prioritization based on whose website gets to you faster than the other. So yeah, you guys, that's net neutrality in a nutshell, basically. So you guys take the floor.
All right. So just going back to Ajit Pai, he did work for Verizon for 2 years, from what I'm reading on the Washington Post article here. He was an associate general counsel at Verizon for 2 years, beginning in 2001. So 01 and 02, I believe, he was associate general counsel. I'm not sure where he went after that, but that does give him a tie for Verizon and all that. So that's why the protesters were protesting in front of these Verizon stores and everything, and why that symbol made sense to them. But yeah, I mean, I have this article here, and there's a lot of interesting information in it. Right after where it even says that Pai served as an assistant general counsel, there's a few things here that I would like to just read out here. Former Democratic FCC chairman Tom Wheeler, who drafted the 2015 net neutrality rules, called Tuesday's move tragic, adding that if you like your cable company, you'll love what this does for the internet. The job of the FCC is to represent the consumer, he said in an interview. Tragically, this decision is only for the benefit of the largely monopoly services that deliver the internet to the consumer. And what that is like, when you access the internet, you have to go through some kind of pass-through service to get to the general public internet, because they don't have any sway over the public internet itself, these companies. They just control the pipelines into it. And so anytime you're accessing the internet, anytime we're even recording this podcast, over the internet like we do, we are accessing through a company, and this net neutrality stuff is all about those companies, not the net itself per se, but what those companies can then therefore do. And like we have said here already, part of this is that the worry with a lot of protesters and people on the left is that this is going to make these companies, or give these companies, the ability to put throttling in, which what throttling is when the company can actually purposely slow down or speed up your service depending on how much you pay them. And so this goes to, like, let's say you're Netflix, and Comcast has their own competitive movie and TV streaming website. What throttling could do is they can go to Netflix then and say, okay, you guys pay us this percentage of your I don't know, something like that. Like, you pay us this amount, yeah, and then we will not infiltrate, or like we won't slow down your service. And so if they can't pay it, if it's a smaller service even that's not Netflix, maybe it's like Joe's moviestreaming.com, I don't know, and he might be offered that same thing. Either you pay us this ransom, essentially, or we're going to slow your service down. Well, he's not going to be able to compete, and people are just going to go to the faster service that Comcast can provide with theirs, because they don't need to throttle their own. Why the hell would they throttle their own? It becomes a competitive trick, essentially.
It's a bit like having the road company controlling where you can drive.
Yeah. So
if you've got like 5 restaurants in an area, you decide, I don't want to go to that restaurant. The company says, well, all the other roads are locked, so...
Yeah. So you kind of have to go into our parking lot, otherwise, you can't drive.
But you're not the restaurant company. You're just the guy that owns the roads. Yeah. You can't tell me where to drive. No, actually, they can't. They can just tell you what you can't drive down here.
Yeah. And so that's definitely one of the worries that's happening with this net neutrality, and it's not unfounded. There was even an article. Yep. Sorry.
Yeah, the other side of it, of course, is that they can then separate out the internet and charge you for it separately.
Oh yeah.
So they could sell it off like TV. When you pay for TV, you buy a certain number of channels. So they could say, right, you can go Facebook, YouTube, and ESPN, and if you want to go to iPlayer, you've got to pay extra.
Yeah. And yeah, there's actually another article from the New York Times that I'm going to be linking with this as well that actually does touch on that. This one's about the actual activists. It's called Inside the Opposition to a Net Neutrality Repeal. And the net neutrality protesters here actually do make that argument that this can essentially, if they are able to repeal this can start let these companies package the internet in some ways, like you're saying with cable, there's those different packages where like this package gives you HBO and ESPN, but you can't get to Cinemax and Stars and whatever else there is out there. Mm-hmm. They can do similar with the internet, maybe. Like, okay, you can go to Netflix, but you can't go to Amazon Prime or Hulu or something, you know.
Let's say you start, you have a company selling, I don't know, T-shirts. You haven't paid the company so only people that have paid a certain price to get the full internet can access it's limiting your market artificially.
Yeah.
Because you're not in the packages that the company is selling.
Yeah. And that can definitely be worrying if they do stuff like that to the internet. That is the death of the internet, as we know it.
Essentially, what this is doing is deregulating internet service providers.
Yeah.
When before
notably, because of the presence of America in our culture, most of the websites we use come from America. Facebook is American and YouTube's American. And, this affects the entire world.
Yeah. Now, there was actually the article that you posted to the Discord, Jordan, that I think you should definitely talk about now, from Ars Technica. It's a really interesting piece.
Yeah. I mean, it pretty much just gets into... So I think in light of Ajit Pai's decision to deregulate internet service providers, ISPs said, look, we're going to uphold our standards. We're going to uphold net neutrality standards despite this turnaround, like we've always done, like we always done in the past. We're always going to prioritize the consumer over any, over our bottom line, basically.
Yeah.
And so, unfortunately, we have an example of an ISP basically, blocking, doing one of the cardinal sins of net neutrality, which is blocking an application from getting to the consumer. So in 2012, AT&T decided to block their users from using a application called FaceTime, which is specifically designed for the iPhone. And this is when FaceTime was made to the public officially. And so I remember this specifically too, because I had an iPhone at that time and I couldn't use FaceTime over their broadband service. And I was like, why can I use this on in my connected to Wi-Fi, but not when I turn off my Wi-Fi? And so that's basically why, because they unilaterally decided, no, we don't want this to compete with any service that we have or may have in the future. So we're not going to allow our users to access this. Yeah. And so that's only one time that happened. And another time it happened was actually it was through it's a different example that's not in the article, and it was a application called Google Wallet. And so basically it worked just like how Google Pay or Android Pay does now. But what AT&T, Verizon, T-Mobile all decided to do was they disabled this feature from working, because they were rallying around a service that they were a part of, which had an very unfortunate acronym, and that was ISIS. And and that's essentially why it didn't take off very well either. But
unfortunate.
But yeah, so it's really bad. But yeah, so yes, internet service providers do have a dirty history of blocking you from accessing content or applications. So don't ever let them, try to manipulate you by saying that that's something that they're not planning on doing or ever going to do in the future. Also, another thing that I do want to bring up is Comcast, them rolling back their customer agreement on their website after RG Pi, and I believe in August 26th, officially laid down his plan to end net neutrality. So basically, in their plan to the public, it was a series of bullet points, and one of them specifically said, "We will not have paid prioritization," which once again is a cardinal sin in net neutrality. Basically, them saying we're going to abide by these regulations that are in place by the Obama administration. And as soon as Ajit Pai, Trump's guy in the FCC head, decided that he was going to end this, a day later they took that verbiage out of their agreement, their customer agreement, or their customer promise. So and so basically that's Comcast gearing up for what's to come. Because here's the thing. I'm sorry that I'm rambling on, but the FTC, because if the FCC isn't going to regulate internet service providers anymore, who's going to keep them from lying to their customers? And so basically that's where the Federal Trade Commission comes in play. And so they're not specifically only taking in complaints about the internet. They're taking complaints about all of telecommunications in general. So they're not as robust. They're actually as a commission, they don't have as many members at the FCC. So they're fearful, because what's going to happen is, instead of there being regulations in place, what the FTC is going to have to do now is, in the user agreement, which is that long ass spreadsheet that you get before partaking in a service, and you just scroll all the way down to the bottom and you press accept, is basically now what's going to have to happen is internet service providers have to abide by what's in their customer agreement, and if they don't, then the FTC will kick in and say, hey, you're doing these things that you specifically said that you're not going to do. Basically, you're regulating yourself, because what internet service providers can do is basically take that verbiage out of the agreement, and they will no longer have to abide by any consumer protections that net neutrality provided. So really, there's nothing anyone can do anymore. There's nothing in place. Will essentially police the way this goes.
I think part of the problem with that, too, is that, like you said, those things, nobody ever reads the entire thing. So most people will just scroll all the way to the bottom and just accept. And what this does, though, is, well, they can just be as transparent and honest about what they're doing, but they can just hide it, sort of, so they don't have to they don't have to adhere to regulations, because there aren't any, because from what I read, actually, over 700 of the different regulations that were put in place due to the net neutrality laws that were put in place by the Obama administration are being lifted off of this the net neutrality issue. I can't remember where it was. It was here somewhere on one of these articles. But there was at least 700 or 800 things that are in place right now that aren't going to be if this passes. And a few things are going to stay in, but I can't remember which or what or anything. There's so much to read. And usually we don't have a huge amount of time to prepare these shows, unfortunately. We do work full-time jobs, guys. But I kind of like blew through all of these tonight, right before we came on air. But it's interesting. I did want to also mention when it comes to like AT&T and them blocking FaceTime, they also actually put restrictions back then on Google Hangouts as well for the same exact reasons. And so this you can see that as like how they're trying to package different things on the internet, because you could get to these services, you could get Google Hangouts and you could get FaceTime, but only if you got the specific AT&T service package through them. Right. And so then they're essentially, like we're saying, they're making the packages already. They were. And now,
whilst promising you they're not going to do it, which is amazing.
Mm-hmm. That was back then that they were doing it. Today, they're saying they're not going to do that, but yeah. How long is that going to,
hey guys,
hold up?
Repeal this law that prevents us from doing this thing. We're totally not going to do it. I promise. Hey
guys, give us the keys to the castle. We'll totally not do anything to the castle. We'll never even go in the castle. Just give us the keys, though. It's fine.
You have the keys to your car. Why do you want the keys to my car? I'm not going to drive it. Why do you want the keys?
I'm not going to drive it. What are you talking about, man? I would never drive your car. I just want keys to it.
Basically. Yeah, it's that, and the dude saying, "Yeah, I'm not going to drive it," and then like 5 minutes later, he sends you a text message saying, "I'm going to drive it," and then he takes off.
Or he's like, dude, I crashed your car, by the way.
Right.
No, but then he crashes your car, and then comes back a year later and goes, "So, you have the keys to your car? I'm not going to drive it."
Right, exactly.
I mean, come on.
Pretty much.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, there's something I do also want to point out is that, look, it's all been a slippery slope because this isn't the only thing that the Trump administration has done in terms of our rights to the internet. And so earlier in the year, the Republican majority in the House and the Senate decided to pass a bill that Trump eventually signed, which essentially took away our privacy rights. In the internet infrastructure. So basically, what happened before was that internet service providers had to provide a sort of like an agreement, basically saying, allow us to cultivate your data and sell it for advertising, and you had the choice to either deny it or accept it. And so what basically happened early in the year is that they took away the regulation which had internet service providers at least ask you for permission before selling your data to advertisers or storing it for their own personal use. And now that's no longer a thing. They're able to just sell your data, and they know everything about you at this point. And the internet allowed you to have at least some semblance of anonymity, but now these broadband providers are now able to just take your data and you can't do anything about it. Even putting your browser into incognito, if you have, say, Chrome, that only affects the browser. It doesn't affect what your internet service provider can see in terms of your activity.
Yeah.
So that was the first thing that happened. And now is this.
Yeah. So all those illicit activities that you're doing on the internet in the incognito thing. Be worried. They're watching.
Right. Right.
But yeah. It's really disturbing what these companies are able to do, and the repealing of these things is going to be a very major issue. Now, I did find where I saw that 700 rules thing, and It was in the CNET article. I wasn't so sure about this article, but I'm still going to be including it in here. It has 13 things you need to know about the FCC's net neutrality regulation. Number 7 was interesting. This is the one where it goes with the 700 rules. It says, number 7, the FCC keeps saying that not all the Title II regulations apply to broadband. What pieces of the old-style regulation will apply? The FCC isn't applying more than 700 rules found in the Title II regulation. So what's left? The FCC has kept at least 9 sections of the Title II regulations. These include, it has numbers here, 201, 202, 208, which the agency say are necessary for open internet rules. They're not really, they're much, just that's as vague as they get. They don't really go much into specific of what these things are. Section 222, for instance, protects consumer privacy. Sections 225, 255, 251A, and 2 ensure broadband access to people with disabilities. The agency also kept Section 224, which requires utilities to give cable system operators and telecommunications carriers access to their poles so that they can attach their own wires for service. And, so they're very vague in this article. This is one reason I was like, I don't know about this article as much, but,
Well, I think I'm glad you brought that up, because there is one semblance of the regulation that's left. And that will be left, and that's basically that internet service providers can't lie to you. So they can't say, hey, we don't have paid prioritization, and they in fact do. So that's basically what's left over. It's that they just can't flat out lie to you about their practices. Yeah.
No, we can't do that.
yeah.
And that doesn't do much of anything. That doesn't do anything for the consumer. It's like, man.
Yeah, so much. But there's a little last piece of that Section 7 here. The agency is also keeping Section 254, which promotes universal deployment of services. But to make sure broadband customers aren't forced to pay into the Universal Service Fund, the FCC is forbearing a subsection of Section 254 that would require broadband providers to collect universal service fees from customers. And the thing with this universal service fee was this was how the United States actually got electricity and telephone lines to rural communities by
it sounds like it's they're supposed to provide it to everyone. In order to do that, they'll charge everyone a little bit. So rather than charging the guy in a remote village somewhere loads to get electricity to, and they're going to charge everyone a little bit.
Exactly.
Socialism.
Exactly. That's exactly what the Universal Service Fund did. And with this, they're saying basically that the broadband providers do not have to collect this anymore. And so that said, the agency does have the authority under Section 254 to distribute USF funds or Universal Service funds already collected to promote broadband deployment in rural and low-income areas. They have the authority to distribute the funds, but they don't have to actually contribute to them, essentially is what that says to me. So they're not collecting universal service fees from their customers, but they can allocate these fees from this fund. That seems a bit criminal in some ways, right?
To me, is that so if you don't have this fee, then customers in remote areas are going to have to pay extra to have the broadband put into them.
Yeah.
So that screws everyone who's not in the city.
Yeah.
Right.
So, yeah. And this is why the United States, back in the FDR time, I believe is when it really started, this whole trend. They started electrifying the rural areas because these companies just weren't doing it on their own because the cost-benefit analysis to them just wasn't there. And so the government actually had to step in. Otherwise, all of the farmers in America still wouldn't have electricity today. And so it was by funds like this Universal Service Fund that they did this, that they actually were able to bring telephone lines to the most rural of areas. And this is just essentially, cutting people off in some ways from internet access being more and more deployed in rural and low-income areas.
And I'm going to assume that means maintaining it as well. Because in remote areas, the maintenance cost can cost quite a bit as well.
Yeah.
So it might be a company, someone has internet out in a remote village somewhere, and it breaks, and the company says, you know what, it just isn't worth fixing it.
Yeah. Absolutely. I can definitely see them doing that kind of thing. Very, very much so. But, yeah, I mean, this is what's happening, guys. I mean, you guys can call your local representatives, and you definitely should on this matter and a lot of other matters that we've been covering on this show. There's so many things that you guys should at least try and contact your representatives, email them, call them, do whatever you can, and tell them what you think of this. You know, if you want net neutrality to stay as it is, tell them that. If you agree with them, I guess you could say that too. But, I mean, these things are going to affect everyone, left and right. This isn't...
And across the world too. Which is what I was going to say. If you're not in the US, keep an ear open for your own government trying to pull something like this. I can see the Tories trying.
Oh, easily, yeah.
Yeah, we're definitely setting a precedent with...
As I mentioned before we started the show, the EU has laws for net neutrality at the moment, so it's a good thing we're in the EU.
Yeah. It's a great thing that the United Kingdom is totally not leaving the EU anytime soon. Totally not going to happen. It's a good thing you're in there.
If America does it, or if America doesn't, other countries are going to try. So we need to be careful of that.
Yeah, and go for it, Jordan.
I just want to say, because I'm reading Ajit Pai's his reasoning for basically abolishing net neutrality, and it eerily sounds like the same arguments that politicians had for why they wanted to roll back Obamacare. So basically, it's a quote that I just want to read real quick, and it says, quote, "Under my proposal, the federal government will stop micromanaging the internet. Instead, the FCC would simply require internet service providers to be transparent about their practices so that consumers can buy the service plan that's best for them, and entrepreneurs and other small businesses can have the technical information they need to innovate." So, and that's the end of the quote. It's basically...
Because the government doesn't micromanage the internet. The whole point of this is that no one micromanages the internet. That's the entire function of this law.
Right.
Yeah. And just to say, what's going on right now, the current thing is it only needs to be approved by the FCC right now, which I believe is only like 5 votes in the FCC for this to happen, and they have 3 of them already, so they already have the majority, and this is why there's a lot of people out there saying this is already going to happen. It's a foregone conclusion. We're not going to be able to stop this.
Always worth trying to fight it.
Absolutely always worth stepping up and saying something, though, still.
I mean, and granted, this ruling doesn't eliminate the possibility of a Democratic FCC chair, basically, because it's appointed by whoever is in the Oval Office currently. So we have the Democratic president that, and that has a Democratic head FCC chairman. They're just going to essentially re-implement net neutrality under Title II once again. But that's only if Congress doesn't pass a binding law which would prevent net neutrality from ever coming back.
Yeah,
And
this is one of those things where we fight it now, and if we lose that, we bash them over the head with it, and then we fight it later.
Right.
And with that, it's very unlikely anything like that will happen right now with Congress, since Congress is owned and controlled by the Republicans, I would say. So
yeah,
this is why it's going to be more and more important, guys, to vote in the upcoming elections. Like every year or every other year is an election year, so there's always going to be things to vote on, and you guys should definitely be getting out there as often and every time you can to vote on these things, because this is the power that we have to wield, and if we don't wield it, we're just relinquishing the power to them, and it only furthers their interests when no one is voting or when less people are voting, to keep them in power, to keep their nefarious bullshit on the federal agenda. So you guys have to really start thinking about being more active in that if you aren't.
Yeah, and definitely. And honestly, the internet will be the communications, it will be the leader in telecommunications if it isn't already. So our future depends on how seamless we're able to use the internet and to control it. And so, and to use it for our own advantage. So a lot of us are going to start, that's going to be where we start to create our own domains in terms of our livelihoods. And a lot of us have already started to do that. And once the FCC, once Ajit gets his way, it's going to throw a lot of that into question. Like Chris and I'm a software engineer, I'm in school to be a software engineer. This is going to completely dramatically, change the way that I'm going to be able to harness the openness of the internet for my own creative goals in the future, and for our podcast, for that instance, or any other podcast or YouTuber.
If you run a blog or a website selling stuff or anything you do on the internet is in jeopardy. Yeah, I also like to stress with people that although liberals do support the issue, it doesn't mean conservatives don't have to. It's one of those cases where everyone should support this. If you support the free market, you support net neutrality. Yeah,
and that's actually exactly what I was about to say too. This is not a left or right issue. This is all of us. If you love InfoWars, and you don't want them to start charging you more money for like a monthly fee or something like that, then you are against these regulations. If you are a TYT member or a Young Turks supporter, this is going to affect you. If you are Breitbart, if you like Breitbart, this is going to affect you. No matter who your source of information is coming from, this will affect your ability to get these websites. And I just had a thought about this too. Like most jobs these days, you have to actually apply online too. Most jobs in America, you have to go online and submit your resumes and things to websites of companies. And what would happen if this kept, creeping outwards from here? And now all of a sudden, what's that?
If you take it to extremes, you apply to vote online nowadays. In the UK, when you fill out an online thing to apply to thing in the post. Yeah. Could it affect things like that? I mean,
totally.
Yeah, potentially.
It sounds conspiratorial, but I wouldn't rule it out.
Yeah, I mean, this is the worrying creep of all of this, though. If these companies, though, Comcast affiliated companies, are going to suddenly have the head up on their networks for people applying for jobs, right? Potentially, this can become a very serious issue. in that regard as well. So that's just one more thing that could potentially come down the line if we keep allowing them to take more and more and more off of these, off of the net neutrality. Eventually we're not going to have neutrality anymore, because they're basically going to just own it and tell you what you can and can't get with your specific, membership level. Like, oh, well, you only have access to, job sites that hire for Home Depot and Target. So basically, you're only going to be getting jobs there. So you don't have the high enough membership to.
Or if you're looking for workers and you haven't paid the internet service provider to put your website on, then people won't see your website, so you can't hire anyone.
Yeah, exactly. So there's so many things that can potentially come from this, and we're not saying that this is exactly what's going to happen right now or anything like that, but these are potential stepping stones, because this is like a lot of things. Precedent does matter, and precedent shows that people can keep pushing forward, in a lot of issues, and so that can become a slippery slope as well. If you allow people to do one thing and then they take a step further and you don't do anything, and then they take another step further and you don't do anything, and they keep on taking steps until they finally find maybe some pushback. But at that point, maybe it's already too late in some ways. Like the internet needs to stay neutral and unregulated. Absolutely. I don't want right-wing organizations like Breitbart and InfoWars to be regulated and banned from the internet. As much as I hate those websites, that would be obviously the wrong way to go. And no one should be advocating to just shut down their rival sources, because they just don't like them. That's ridiculous.
Right. Yeah. No, exactly.
Great.
Yeah.
Question though, okay, this undoubtedly will pass on December the 14th. By the way, that's when the FCC convened to vote, December 14th. And so, once again, it'll undoubtedly pass because the scale is tipped to the side of the Republicans. So what can people do after that? So for instance, so the FCC will get sued. That's the first thing that's going to happen after this. They will get sued by consumer protection organizations right off the bat. But there's no guarantee that that's going to overturn any of this, especially, so what can, I'm racking my brain about what people can do. For instance, another scenario is that there is a quote unquote progressive broadband provider named Credo Mobile, which basically they all of what you pay for your service, they will donate a hefty portion of that towards a progressive cause of your choosing. So I've been following them for a while now. So I guess this will potentially give an opening to mobile or service providers that promise not to abide by the net neutrality standard, even though it's no longer enforced. I don't know what's going to happen.
I think this is going to be about bringing them back more than winning. If you sue the FCC, that'll take time. If they try and push it through and you keep protesting, that'll take time. Delay until the midterms. Maybe you can take Congress.
Yeah.
The next presidency. It's just about holding them back, I think, at this point, because they control everything. It's just about holding them back away until we can get things back together, until you can take control of your politics again.
Potentially. I don't want to,
So let's through town halls and things. If you can even move your congressman slightly towards not voting for this, that helps loads because the majorities are slim at the moment.
Well, the depressing thing is, it's not up to our congressman. You know, it's really just this panel of 5 chairmen in the FCC. Your chairman can either support it or be against it. But
so, like you say, if Congress doesn't pass a binding resolution on it, then it can be repealed later, and that might be the avenue to go down.
That's true.
Also, the Senate can actually put serious pressure on the FCC because they do have some sway over the FCC, I believe, financially especially. So they can play with their budget in some ways to, get them to come back in line. But
elected officials or even the FCC directly is helpful.
Yeah.
And like I say, come back until we can take control of the politics again. So we can get this. The midterms are the big one. If we can take Congress, then I think we'll be okay. And then taking the presidency back in 2020.
2020. Oh man, that makes me think. What if? Let's just imagine the ticket that could be there. Bernie Sanders, Elizabeth Warren, 2020. Oh my God, that sign right there, that vision just makes me so happy. I don't know. I just want to snuggle it a little bit and be really But that I really hope that happens. I'm just gonna have to say right now because I don't see anyone else in politics right now that matters to me other than those two. Like no one else seems very consequential in their leanings.
Yeah, and I mean, as far as I'm concerned, politically, this is a bomb for the Trump administration and any Republicans aligned in supporting this. This is one thing that I believe can rally anyone, no matter the party, and that is equal access to the internet. And so, him being behind this in the Conservative Party, trumpeting for this, is, I believe, can become a really bad thing for them coming midterm and even the election in 2020.
Yeah.
Trump's policies are already like 30% approval rating. Everyone hates them. Ammo, stuff like this, they can just keep hammering them with it and take it back in the midterms. The 2020 presidency should be a walkover if this continues. It's like, right. If Trump cracks 30% approval rating for a policy, that's incredible. If a third of the country approves of what he's doing, bloody hell, that's popular.
Yeah, but it also still has to be that the whoever is against him has to be popular enough themselves to actually get over the whole
and it's almost certain
not voting thing.
It won't be Trump. It's almost certain it won't be Trump running.
Yeah.
Republican, and they will try and distance themselves.
Yeah, it seems unlikely in some ways that Trump would go for a second term, but we can't tell from now. Obviously, it's still too early on that front. But this is what Bernie supporters were trying to convey in the very last election that happened in 2016 was. You need that energy. You need that grassroots energy that Bernie Sanders had. Hillary Clinton had literally none of that. She did not excite almost, like most people were not excited for her, other than there were people out there excited that we would have the first female president, and that would have been a great thing. But unfortunately, that wasn't enough to get enough people to go out and vote and completely destroy Trump, and it gave him an opportunity to actually pull this thing out of his ass, like he did.
Very good to Democrats, but she was very bad at appealing to independents, and it's independents she kind of needed it to appeal to.
Yeah. She's not good. I can't say much more than that. She is not good. Hillary Clinton, like...
If he'll try to run again.
This is what Hillary Clinton was up to during the primary.
I'm just chilling in Cedar Rapids.
You know, I mean, we all know how well that went. Also, here's another interesting take on Hillary Clinton by a name you might know here, namely Alex Jones.
That's Hillary.
That was his impression of Hillary Clinton, and it's a good one, right? I think that one really nails it on the essence of Hillary Clinton. But like, she just, being serious, she just wasn't actually like in any way like exciting to most progressives that actually wanted progressive values to win over the day, you know? And so there were a lot of people that just didn't vote, that just didn't care enough to go out and vote. And so we had, I think, there's over 300 million people in this country, and they got around 150, 160 million votes. So there were still a lot of people that did not vote in the election that could have. And so that shows to me that what you need to do is excite people and get them actually wanting to come out and vote for you. And the only two people that I know of that can actually do that are Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren. And that's why I really hope we see a 2020 ticket of Sanders Warren. Oh, it's so good. It'd be so good. Oh man, it'd be so good. But anyway, I'm sorry. I was getting a little worked up over here. I'm sorry.
Hot and bothered.
A little bit hot and bothered and frothing in my loins.
Don't tell me where.
I don't need to know about the frothiness of your loins. Thank you very much. But yeah, I mean, guys, please. You have less than a week before that vote. It's on the 14th. That's next Thursday. So please, guys, make a call. Just send an email. Do something. Maybe even just like promote this idea. Find an article. Promote that to your friends and family. Do something. Try and get people actually interested in what's going on here, and get this conversation rolling. We need more people to start calling these people and just hounding them as much as we can. Otherwise, you know, having no influence is much worse than having a very small amount of influence, you know? I mean, at least you have some influence, and you can potentially get a few people to call their representatives or whatever, and maybe with those representatives, we can then get those people to put pressure onto these guys in the FCC to not do this bullshit. And we need to just do this, you know? I mean, There's a lot of different organizations. In that one article that I'm going to be posting, the one group is called Fight for the Future, and they're one of the groups that's pushing to end the repeal here. And there's a couple other groups that they're working with as well. I can't find their names right off the bat here, though. But there's a bunch of things. Even if you just Googled, there's Free Press is another one, and Demand Progress was another group that's actually doing this as well. So even if you went for a Google search, you could probably find some of these organizations by just looking for net neutrality. I don't know, what would you guys put in there? Net neutrality organization? I don't know. But yeah, just look for these groups though. Like they're out there and they're trying to push back, and we need to push back as hard as we can. And in as many ways as we can. Any little bit you guys can do is going to help. I guarantee you. Yeah.
Also, like, definitely, just stay informed, because, like, I think this is the time to actually know what your government is doing to you. and because they're doing a lot, and what you once thought was normal will be a thing in the past overnight. And so, definitely get familiar with policy. And man, it's just, I just hear so many people just scoff at the idea of just even being politically active, or just the idea of talking and thinking about politics. And, sadly enough, they don't understand that a lot of the social ills that they suffer from is a direct result of their government, and that they can do something about it if only they knew what was actually going on. So definitely stay informed.
The people have more power than they think. But with that, guys, I think we are a little over time, like always. But but that's okay. You guys can follow us on Facebook, and you will get a weekly notification on Saturday when the show goes live. You guys can also email us any little bits you had. We actually got an email this past week from Fred, and he was talking about our previous episode about socialism versus capitalism versus mixed economy and all that. I don't know if he would like me to read it on air, but I guess if you guys want me to read something on air that you send us, then please let me know, and I will do that. So, in going forward. But we got our first email, guys. Success. Mission accomplished. We need to have a nice little party on top of an aircraft carrier and have a giant banner. I think it'd be great. It'd be so big league. You don't even know. Oh my god, it's gonna be great. But you can also potentially support us on Patreon at patreon.com/theevolutionofnow. I didn't even mention the email address. Email address is theevolutionofnow@gmail.com as well. Guys, I really hope you guys the best this week coming up. But parting words, guys? Anything to give our listeners a little bit of encouragement, or maybe, something? I don't know. You are super, super quiet, Michael. What was that?
Everything looks shite at the moment, but it will get better. Did you hear that?
Well, I heard you breathe into the mic. Jeez, man. But, yeah. Everything looks shite at the moment, but things will get better, I think is the gist of what you said there. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, that's good, I suppose. Everything is fucked right now, but don't worry, guys. It's all going to get better.
Labour are due to take the election. Every year, I think Labour's chances of winning get better and better and better because the old people are dying off.
Yeah.
Trump's a fuck up. Democrats are. Yep, do it.
Well, I'm going to assume you stopped talking, Michael, because that was really, really quiet. And I don't know if it'll actually come out on the recording end of things, because I do a few things on the editing side of things, but I'm not sure if it'll come up audibly what you just said, Michael. But Jordan, do you have any parting words for the week?
Man. I guess, yeah, guys, just stay. I'll probably be echoing a lot what Mike just said, but yeah, just
if you could hear him at least.
Yeah, sure. But stay, stay strong, stay tenacious. Don't give up. A lot of people are on your side. Most of the country is on your side. So just dream of a better tomorrow, and that should propel you towards the next time you can finally exercise your vote. So, yeah.
Yeah, and Michael is, texting me on Discord right now. He says, the Democrats are pulling ahead. The left are taking the lead in UK polls. There's reason to hope. So, yeah, I guess. Right. I suppose. That's good. That's good words to leave us off with. Guys, thank you so much for being with us again, and we hope to have you here again next week. You guys have a great week, and let's see what happens this week, huh? I mean,
ooh, yeah.
Jeez.
Prepare yourself.
Prepare your butt cheeks.
Ooh.
It's clench time, guys.